The metal walls of the prison cell were cold against Jiwon's back. He sat on the floor, watching the other prisoners through the energy bars that kept them locked inside. The Kepler station buzzed with activity above them, but down here, in the holding cells, everything felt dead and hopeless. 3 days ago, Jiwon had been the captain of a small human exploration ship. His crew of 12 had been mapping unknown star systems at the edge of human space. They were scientists, engineers, and pilots who wanted to learn about the galaxy. Now they were prisoners of the hegemony, waiting to die in the fighting pits, for the entertainment of alien nobles. "Stop looking so worried," said Hyon, one of Jiwon's crew members. The young pilot was trying to smile, but his hands were shaking. "Maybe we will get lucky." Jiwon did not answer. He had seen the arena when they brought him here. The sand was dark with old blood. Bones were scattered in the corners where cleaning. Robots could not reach. The seats around the fighting pit were filled with wealthy aliens who cheered when prisoners died. A guard walked past their cell. The creature had 4 arms and skin like gray leather. It looked at the humans with yellow eyes that showed no emotion. The guard moved on without speaking. "I heard something," whispered Daeho, an older crew member who had served in the human military before joining their exploration mission. "The other prisoners are talking about someone in the far cell. They say she has been here for 3 years. "So?" Hyon asked. "So she is still alive after 3 years in this place," Daeho said quietly. "That means she is very dangerous." Jiwon stood up and walked to the front of their cell. He could see down the long hallway that connected all the prison cells. At the very end, in the shadows, was another cell. Even from this distance, he could see something moving inside it. "What species is she?" Jiwon asked. "Dragonborn," said a voice from the cell next to theirs. The speaker was a thin creature with blue skin and large black eyes. "Do not look at her too long, human. She killed 17 fighters last month alone." Jiwon stared down the hallway. Dragonborn were rare in this part of the galaxy. He had never seen one in person. Stories said they could breathe fire and had incredible strength. They also said Dragonborn were proud warriors who never surrendered. "Why is she still alive?" Jiwon asked the blue-skinned prisoner. "If she wins all her fights, why do they keep her here?" The creature laughed, but the sound was bitter. "Because she makes them money. The crowds love to watch her kill, but she cannot escape because of the chains." "Chains?" "Energy chains that stop her fire. They cause pain every second of every day. After 3 years, most beings would go insane. But not her. She just gets angrier." That night, Jiwon could not sleep. He kept thinking about the dragonborn female in the far cell. While his crew members snored around him, he stood at the bars and looked down the dark hallway. 2 guards walked past, carrying energy weapons. They stopped at the far cell, and one of them laughed. "Time for your medicine, dragon," the guard said in the common galactic language. There was a bright flash of blue light, and Jiwon heard a sound that made his blood turn cold. It was not quite a scream and not quite a roar. It was the sound of someone in terrible pain who refused to break. The guards walked away, still laughing. Jiwon gripped the energy bars of his cell until his knuckles turned white. The hegemony was known for being cruel, but this was torture. They were keeping the dragonborn alive just to make her suffer. The next morning, the guards came for them. They used shock sticks to force all the prisoners out of their cells and into a large room. Jiwon saw her for the first time then. The dragonborn female stood apart from the other prisoners. She was tall, maybe 7 feet, with scales that looked like they had once been bright red but were now dull and scarred. Wings grew from her back, but they were folded tight against her body. Around her wrists, ankles, and neck were thick metal, bands that glowed with blue energy. But it was her eyes that made Jiwon stop breathing for a moment. They were golden, like fire, and filled with a rage so deep it seemed to burn. She did not look at any of the other prisoners. She stared straight, ahead, as if they did not exist. "Listen well," shouted a guard. "Today we have special entertainment. The new human prisoners will fight against our champion, the dragon called Nari." Several prisoners gasped. Others moved away from Jiwon and his crew. "She has killed 43 opponents," the guard continued. "She shows no mercy. She feels no fear. Today, she will add 12 more kills to her record." Jiwon looked at his crew. They were scientists and engineers, not fighters. Hyun looked like he might faint. Daeho was trying to look brave, but Jiwon could see the fear in his eyes. "The fight will begin in 1 hour," the guard said. "Use this time to pray to whatever gods you believe in." As the other prisoners were led away, Jiwon found himself standing near Nari. Up close, he could see the energy chains more clearly. They did not just hold her. They sent small shocks through her body every few seconds. Her muscles twitched each time, but her face showed no pain. "You should run," she said without looking at him. Her voice was rough, like she had not used it much lately. "When they put us in the arena, you should run to the far side and hide. It will not save you, but you might live a few minutes longer." "Why do you fight for them?" Jiwon asked. Now she did look at him. Her golden eyes studied his face for a long moment. "Because the alternative is worse. They told me if I stop fighting, they will bring more of my people here. Children, elders. I am the last of my clan. I will not let them suffer as I have." Jiwon felt something cold settle in his stomach. The hegemony was not just cruel. They were evil. "What is your name?" he asked. She turned away from him. "Names are for people who have hope. I am just a weapon. Now." But the guard had called her Nari. Jiwon remembered that. As they were led toward the arena, he kept thinking about her words. She was not fighting because she wanted to. She was fighting to protect others, even though it meant living in constant pain. The arena was even worse than Jiwon remembered. Thousands of aliens filled the seats, all excited to watch humans die. The floor was covered in sand that had been stained dark by years of blood. "Today," announced a voice over the speakers, "we present a special treat. 12 humans against our champion, the fire-breathing dragon Nari." The crowd roared its approval. Jiwon looked at his crew one last time. Then he looked across the arena at Nari, who stood alone on the other side. The energy chains around her wrists were glowing brighter now. "You're coming with me," he whispered, though she could not hear him over the noise of the crowd. He did not know how yet, but he was going to get her out of this place. The arena gates opened with a loud crash. Nari walked out first, moving like a predator. Her energy chains glowed bright blue in the arena lights. The crowd cheered when they saw her, but the sound was ugly and cruel. Jiwon's crew stayed close, together as they entered from the opposite gate. Hyun was breathing too fast. Daeho had picked up a piece of broken metal from the arena floor, but his hands were shaking. The others looked around like trapped animals. "Spread out," Jiwon told them quietly. "Do not attack her. Just try to stay alive." "Are you crazy?" Hyun whispered. "She will kill us all." "Maybe," Jiwon said. "But I have an idea." The announcer's voice boomed over the speakers. "Let the battle begin." Nari did not move at first. She stood in the center of the arena, watching the humans with her burning golden eyes. Then she started walking toward them, slow and steady. "Run!" Daeho shouted. But Jiwon did not run. Instead, he walked straight toward Nari. His crew called his name, but he did not stop. The crowd grew quiet. This was not what they expected. Nari stopped walking. She tilted her head to one side like she was confused. "What are you doing, human?" "My name is Jiwon," he said, still walking toward her. "And I am going to get you out of here. You are insane." But she did not attack him. Jiwon was close enough now to see the details of her energy chains. They were more complex than he had thought. The metal bands around her wrists had small devices built into them. As he watched, blue energy crackled between the devices and her skin. She flinched slightly each time it happened. "These are quantum locks," he said, studying the chains. "I have seen this technology before." "Impossible. The hegemony says their chain technology is unique." Jiwon smiled grimly. "The hegemony lies about many things." He pulled a small tool from his belt. All exploration ship captains carried basic engineering equipment. "They stole this design from human scientists 50 years ago." The crowd was getting angry. They wanted to see fighting, not talking. Some aliens started throwing things into the arena. "You cannot break quantum locks with a simple tool," Nari said, but there was something new in her voice. "Hope, maybe, or fear." "I cannot break them," Jiwon agreed. "But I can overload them." He touched his tool to one of the devices on her wrist chain. Sparks flew. The blue energy flickered. "What are you doing?" Nari demanded. "Quantum locks need perfect balance to work," Jiwon explained as he worked. "If I can disrupt the energy flow just right, the whole system will collapse." More sparks. The energy around her wrist was getting weaker. Suddenly, Nari grabbed his arm. "Stop. If you are wrong, the feedback will kill us both." Jiwon looked into her golden eyes. "Do you want to stay here forever?" She stared at him for a long moment. Then she let go of his arm. "Do it." Jiwon pressed his tool harder against the device. There was a bright flash and a sound like thunder. The energy chain around Nari's right wrist went dark. She stared at her, freehand like she could not believe it. "How do you feel?" Jiwon asked. "Strange." She flexed her fingers. "The pain is less." But the guards were moving now. They had realized something was wrong. Armed figures in armor were entering the arena from several gates. "We need to move," Jiwon said. He started working on the chain around her other wrist. "There are too many." "Guards," Nari said. "Even if you free me completely, we cannot fight them all." "We do not have to fight them all," Jiwon said. Another flash, another chain going dark. "We just have to reach their ship." The second wrist chain fell away. Nari held up both hands and stared at them. Then she smiled for the first time in 3 years. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just remembered how to hunt. "Stand back," she told Jiwon. Nari took a deep breath. Her chest expanded, and Jiwon could see something glowing inside her throat. She opened. Her mouth and fire poured out. Not the weak flame of a lighter, but a roaring stream of dragon fire that turned the arena sand to glass. The crowd screamed and started running for the exits. "I had forgotten," Nari said, watching the flames dance around her fingers. "How good." "It feels to burn." The guards fired their energy weapons at them. Nari grabbed Jiwon and pulled him behind her. Her wings spread wide, shielding them both from the blaster fire. Where the energy bolts hit her scales, they left dark marks but did not penetrate. "Can you fly?" Jiwon asked. "Not with the other chains still on," she said. "But I can run." She grabbed him with one arm and his crew with the other. Then she ran toward the arena wall. When they reached it, she did not slow down. Instead, she breathed fire at the metal barrier until it glowed red hot. Then she kicked it. The wall exploded outward in a shower of molten metal. They were in a hallway now, with confused guards shouting and alarms blaring everywhere. "Which way to the ships?" Nari asked. "I do not know," Jiwon admitted. "I do." The voice came from behind. Them. It was Daiho, Jiwon's military crew member. "I studied the station plans when they brought us here. The hangar is 3 levels up." They ran through corridors filled with panicking aliens. Nari cleared the way with bursts of fire, while Jiwon used his engineering knowledge to override door locks and disable security systems. "There!" Daiho pointed to a large door marked with symbols. "That is the main hangar." But as they approached the door, it opened and 20 guards poured out. These were not arena guards with shock sticks. These were military soldiers with real weapons. "Surrender now," their leader called out, "and we will make your deaths quick." Nari stepped forward. The remaining chains around her ankles and neck were still glowing, but they seemed weaker now. "I have a better idea." She breathed fire again, but this time she controlled it carefully. The flames wrapped around the guards like a living thing, heating their armor until they screamed and ran away. "Impressive," said a new voice. An alien in an expensive uniform walked out of the hangar. He had pale blue skin and wore medals on his chest. "But you cannot escape. The entire station is sealed." "Who are you?" Jiwan demanded. "Admiral Yerim of the Hegemony Fleet. I came here to personally oversee your execution." She smiled coldly. "Imagine my surprise when I found you had broken our perfect prison." "Your chains were not that perfect," Jiwan said. "No," Admiral Yerim agreed. "It seems we underestimated human cleverness. But it does not matter. You are still trapped." Nari growled low in her throat. "We will see about that." She lunged forward, but Admiral Yerim pressed a button on a device in her hand. The remaining chains on Nari's body flared bright blue. She screamed and fell to her knees. "Did you think we did not have backup controls?" Admiral Yerim laughed. "The dragon is still mine," but Jiwan was already moving. While everyone was watching Nari, he had been studying the device in the Admiral's hand. It was just another piece of hegemony technology. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was breaking other people's technology. He tackled Admiral Yerim and grabbed the control device. Before she could stop him, he smashed it against the floor. The chains around Nari's ankles and neck went dark. Nari stood up slowly. The golden fire in her eyes was burning brighter than ever. "Thank you," she said to Jiwan. "Now let me return the favor." What happened next was fast and terrible. Nari moved like lightning, her claws and fire devastating the remaining guards. Admiral Yerim tried to run, but Nari caught her. "Wait!" Jiwan called out. "Do not kill her. We might need her." Nari looked at him with surprise. "She would have killed us all." "Yes," Jiwan said, "but we are not like them." For a moment, Nari stared at him. Then she nodded and simply knocked Admiral Yerim unconscious instead. "There," she said. "Now let us steal their ship and get out of here." As they ran toward the hangar where dozens of ships waited, Jiwan realized something had changed. When he first saw Nari in her cell, she had looked broken and hopeless. Now she looked like what she truly was, a dragon-born warrior with fire in her heart. "You're coming with me?" he had whispered in the arena. But now he wondered if maybe she was, the one leading them all to freedom. The stolen hegemony ship flew through space at maximum speed. Jiwan sat in the pilot's chair, trying to figure out the alien controls. Behind him, his crew was checking their injuries and talking in quiet voices about what had happened. Nari stood at the back of the ship's bridge, staring out at the stars. She had not said much since they escaped. The dark marks where her chains had been were still visible on her scales. "Where are we going?" Han asked. "Away from here," Jiwan said. "But I am not sure where." "I know a place," Nari said without turning around. "There is a moon called Kitos. Pirates and smugglers use it as a base. The hegemony does not go there." "Can we trust pirates?" Deho asked. Nari finally turned to look at them. "Can you trust the hegemony?" Deho nodded. "Good point." It took them 6 hours to reach Kitos. The moon was small and gray, with deep canyons where ships could hide. As they landed at a hidden spaceport, Jiwan saw dozens of other vessels. Most of them looked like they had been stolen or modified. "Stay close to me," Nari warned them. "These people respect strength. If they think you are weak, they will try to rob you." The spaceport was busy, even though it was the middle of the night cycle. Aliens of many different species walked around, buying and selling goods that were probably illegal in hegemony space. "Nari!" a voice called out. "I thought you were dead!" A young dragonborn female ran toward them. She was smaller than Nari, with bright green scales and no visible scars. When she reached them, she hugged Nari tightly. "Yunji," Nari said, and for the first time since Ji-won met her, she almost smiled. "You escaped." "2 years ago," Yunji said. "I have been working as a ship engineer here. But what happened to you? The last time I saw you, the hegemony was taking you away in chains." "These humans freed me," Nari said, indicating Ji-won and his crew. Yunji looked at them with surprise. "Humans? But they are so small." "Size does not matter if you are clever," Nari said. "This one broke quantum locks with a simple tool." Yunji's eyes went wide. "Impossible." "I thought so too," Nari said. "But humans are full of surprises." Yunji led them to a cantina in the deepest part of the spaceport. The ceiling was low and the air was thick with smoke from alien cigarettes. Creatures of all kinds sat at small tables, drinking and talking in low voices. "So what is your plan?" Yunji asked when they found a table in the corner. "I do not know," Ji-won admitted. "We just wanted to escape." "Escape is not enough," Nari said. Her golden eyes were hard. "The hegemony still has your people, and they will capture more humans, more dragonborn, more of anyone who does not bow to them." "She is right," said a new voice. A man walked over to their table. He was human, but older than Ji-won, with gray hair and scars on his face. "I heard about what happened at Kepler Station. The whole galaxy is talking about it." "Who are you?" Ji-won asked. "Minho," the man said, sitting down without being invited. "I used to be an admiral in the human fleet. Now I am what you might call a rebel." "There is a human rebel fleet?" Hyun asked. "Small one," Minho said. "Maybe 20 ships. We rescue human prisoners and attack hegemony supply lines. But we could use more people." "What about your crew?" Nari asked Ji-won. "The ones who were not with you in the arena?" Ji-won's stomach felt cold. "They took them somewhere else before the fight." "I know where," Minho said. "Prison planet called Keth 7. It is where the hegemony keeps their special prisoners." "Special prisoners?" "Scientists, engineers, people whose knowledge they want to steal." Minho's voice was grim. "They use drugs and machines to break their minds and take their memories." Ji-won stood up so fast his chair fell over. "We have to—" "Get them!" "Sit down," Minho said calmly. "Keth 7 is one of the most guarded places in hegemony space. You cannot just fly there and attack it." "Then what do you suggest?" Nari asked. Minho smiled. "I suggest we work together. My rebels, your dragon friend, and anyone else who wants to hurt the hegemony." "You barely know us," Ji-won said. "Why would you trust us?" "Because you did something no one thought was possible," Minho said. "You broke someone out of a hegemony prison. That makes you either very lucky or very dangerous. Either way, I want you on my side." Yunji leaned forward. "There are others here who might help. The hegemony has made many enemies." Over the next few hours, word spread through the spaceport about what had happened at Kepler Station. More people came to their table. A blue-skinned engineer who had escaped from a labor camp. A former hegemony soldier who had refused to kill civilians. Even some humans who had been pirates before the war started. "The problem is ships," Minho explained, "and weapons. The hegemony has both. We have courage, but that is not always enough. I might be able to help with that," Yunji said. "I have been studying hegemony ship designs. They have weaknesses." "What kind of weaknesses?" Ji-won asked. "Their energy shields are strong, but they use too much power. If you can force them to keep their shields up for too long, their weapon systems start to fail." "How do you force them to keep their shields up?" Daeho asked. Nari smiled, and this time it was not a nice smile. with dragonfire. It could work, Minho said slowly. Hit-and-run attacks. Force them to waste power defending, then strike when they are weak. What about Keth 7? Jiwon asked. My crew is still there. We will need a plan for that too, Minho said. But first we need more ships and more people. I know where to get. Both, said another voice. They all turned to see a woman approaching their table. She was human, with short black hair and the kind of scars that came from many battles. Soyeon, Minho said. I thought you were dead. Not yet, she said, sitting down. Though the hegemony tried hard enough. I have been hiding in the outer systems, gathering other survivors. How many? Minho asked. Maybe 100 ships. Not all of them are warships, but they all have crews who hate the hegemony. Jiwon looked around the table. A few hours ago, he had been a simple exploration captain. Now he was apparently part of a rebellion. There is something else, Soyeon said. Intelligence reports say the hegemony is developing a new weapon, something that can change the brain chemistry of entire species. What does that mean? Hyun asked. It means they want to make slaves of everyone, Nari said. Her voice was deadly quiet. Remove the ability to fight back or think for yourself. They tested it on some dragon-born prisoners, Soyeon continued. The survivors are like empty shells. They obey any order without question. Jiwon felt sick. How long do we have? Unknown. But the facility where they are developing it is on Keth 7. The same place where your crew is being held, Minho said to Jiwon. Then we have to hit it, Nari said, before they can finish their weapon. It will be dangerous, Soyeon warned. Maybe suicide. Everything is dangerous now, Jiwon said. But we cannot let them turn people into slaves. Minho nodded. Then we plan a raid on Keth 7, rescue Jiwon's crew and destroy the weapon facility. And if we fail? Yoonji asked. Then the galaxy becomes a very quiet place, Nari said, because no one will be left who remembers how to fight. As they began planning their attack, Jiwon realized that everything had changed. They were no longer running away from the hegemony. Now, they were going to war against it. He looked at Nari, who was studying maps of Keth 7 with intense concentration. 3 days ago, she had been a broken prisoner in chains. Now she was a warrior again, planning to strike back at her enemies. You're coming with me, he had said in the arena. But now he understood that it was bigger than that. They were all coming together, all the people the hegemony had hurt and broken and enslaved, and together they might actually have a chance. The hunt was about to begin, but this time they would be the hunters. Keth 7 looked like a dead planet from space. The surface was gray rock and poisonous atmosphere. But beneath the ground, the hegemony had built a massive prison complex that held thousands of prisoners. Jiwon stood on the bridge of their stolen ship, watching the planet grow larger on the screen. Around them, 15 other ships flew in formation. It was not a big fleet, but it was all they had. Remember the plan? Minho's voice came over the communication system. We hit fast and hard. Get in. Rescue the prisoners. Destroy the weapon facility and get out. Easy, Hyun muttered from his pilot seat. What could go wrong? Nari stood behind Jiwon, checking her weapons one last time. Over the past week, she had become their military advisor. She knew hegemony tactics better than anyone. The defense satellites will see us soon, she said. Once they do, we will have maybe 10 minutes before their main fleet arrives. Will that be enough time? Jiwon asked. It has to be. Yoonji was at the engineering station monitoring their shields and weapons. All systems are ready, but if we take too much damage, the ship will not be able to escape. Then we do not take too much damage, Nari said simply. The first attack came without warning. Energy beams lanced out from hidden weapons platforms on the planet's surface. One of their ships exploded in a ball of fire. Evasive maneuvers, Minho shouted over the communication system. Jiwan grabbed the navigation controls and sent their ship diving toward the planet. Around them, the other rebel vessels scattered like leaves in a storm. There! Nari pointed at a spot on the planet's surface. That is the main entrance to the prison. It looked like a small metal building, but Jiwan knew it was just the tip of a huge underground complex. As they got closer, defensive turrets rose from the ground and started firing. "Shields at 60%, Yunji reported. "Take us down next." "To the entrance," Nari said. "I will handle the turrets." "Are you sure?" Jiwan asked. Instead of answering, Nari moved to the ship's cargo door. When it opened, wind and poisonous air rushed in. She did not seem to care. Her wings spread wide, and she jumped out of the ship. Jiwan watched in amazement as she flew toward the defensive turrets. Her fire turned metal to slag and melted rock to glass. In less than a minute, the entrance was clear. "Landing now," Hyon said. They set down hard on the rocky surface. Other rebel ships were landing around them, and armed fighters poured out. The plan was simple: find the prisoners, find the weapon facility, destroy everything that needed destroying, and leave. But plans never survive contact with the enemy. The moment they entered the underground complex, alarms started screaming. Hegemony guards came running from every direction. These were not arena guards with shock sticks. These were military soldiers with armor and energy weapons. "Split up," Minho ordered through their communication devices. "Jiwan's team goes for the human prisoners. My team hits the weapon facility." Jiwan ran through metal corridors with Nari beside him. Behind them came Hyon, Daeho, and 6 other rebels. The complex was huge, with passages going in every direction. "This way," Nari said, leading them down a side corridor. The holding cells should be on the lower levels. They found the first group of prisoners 2 levels down. Humans, dragon-born, and other species were locked in cells barely big enough for one person. Many of them looked sick or injured. "Stand back," Nari said. She breathed fire on the electronic locks until they melted. The cell doors swung open. "Who are you?" asked one of the human prisoners, a woman with gray hair and frightened eyes. "Rescue," Jiwan said simply. "Can you walk?" "I think so." They freed 3 dozen prisoners from that level and sent them toward the surface with 2 rebels as guards. But Jiwan's crew was not among them. "They must be deeper," Nari said. They went down another level. Here the cells were different. Each one had machines attached to it, devices that hummed with electronic energy. "What are those?" Hyon asked. Nari's face went pale. "Mind breakers. They use them to steal memories and destroy personalities." In the first cell, they found a dragon-born male who did not respond when they opened his door. His eyes were empty, like no one was home inside his head. "Too late for him," Nari said quietly. The machine broke his mind. They found more prisoners like that, beings who had once been engineers or scientists or soldiers, but were now just empty shells. It made Jiwan angry in a way he had never felt before. "There," Daeho pointed to a cell at the end of the corridor. "I see humans!" Jiwan ran to the cell and looked inside. 5 members of his crew were there, including his chief engineer and his medical officer. They looked weak and frightened, but their eyes were still clear. "Captain," the medical officer called out, "you came for us." "Of course I did," Jiwan said, melting the lock with Nari's help. "Can you walk?" "We can run if we have to," the chief engineer said. But as they helped the prisoners out of their cells, explosions echoed through the complex. The walls shook and dust fell from the ceiling. "What was that?" Hyon asked. "Either Minho found the weapon facility," Nari said, "or the hegemony fleet just arrived." It was both. Minho's voice crackled over their communication devices. "Weapon facility destroyed, but we have big problems. A hegemony battle fleet just dropped out of hyperspace. We need to leave now." "On our way," Jiwan said. They ran through the corridors with the rescued prisoners. But as they reached the main level, hegemony soldiers blocked their path. There were too many to fight. "This way," Nari said, leading them down a different corridor. "That is not the way to the ships," Daiho protested. "The ships are gone," Nari said. "I can hear the battle outside. We need another way out." She led them to a large room filled with machinery. It looked like some kind of power plant for the complex. "If we destroy this," she said, "it will knock out their communications and life support. In the confusion, we might be able to steal a ship from their hangar." "How do we destroy it?" Jiwon asked. Nari smiled grimly. "Dragon fire burns very hot." She began breathing fire at the largest machine. Metal glowed red, then white, then began to melt. But the effort was taking everything she had. Sweat poured down her face, and her wings drooped with exhaustion. "Nari, that is enough," Jiwon said. "You will kill yourself." "Not enough," she gasped. "Need more heat." That was when the hegemony soldiers found them. They poured into the room, weapons raised. Their leader was someone Jiwon recognized. Admiral Yerim, the woman they had captured and left tied up at Kepler Station. "Surrender now," she called out, "and I will only execute half of you." "I have a better idea," Nari said. She turned away from the machine and faced the soldiers. Her mouth opened, and fire poured out. But this was not the controlled flame she had used before. This was dragon fire in its purest form, hot enough to melt steel and turn stone to liquid. The soldiers scrambled for cover, but there was nowhere to run. Their weapons overheated and exploded. Their armor began to glow. "Impossible!" Admiral Yerim screamed. "Your fire should not be that hot." "You do not understand," Nari said, still breathing fire. "I am not just angry anymore. I am free." But the effort was too much. As the last soldier fell, Nari collapsed. Jiwon caught her before she hit the ground. Her scales were hot to the touch, and she was barely conscious. "Nari, stay with me." Did we destroy it?" she whispered. Jiwon looked at the machinery. It was all melted metal and sparking wires. "Yes, you destroyed it." Around them, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. Alarms screamed, and they could hear the sound of life support systems failing. "We need to get out of here," Daiho said. Jiwon picked up Nari and carried her toward the exit. She was heavier than she looked, but he was not going to leave her behind. They found the hegemony hangar and stole the first ship they could get started. As they lifted off, Jiwon could see the rebel fleet retreating into hyperspace. Some ships were missing. Good people had died here, but they had rescued dozens of prisoners and destroyed the weapon that would have enslaved entire species. And they were all alive. As they escaped into space, Nari woke up in the medical bay. Jiwon was sitting beside her, checking her injuries. "Did everyone get out?" she asked. "Most of them," Jiwon said. "We lost some ships, but most of the prisoners were rescued." She tried to sit up, but Jiwon gently pushed her back down. "Rest. You nearly burned yourself out back there." "I had to," she said. "If that weapon had been finished—" "I know. You saved everyone." Nari looked at him with her golden eyes. "You came back for your crew, even though it was dangerous." "Of course I did. They are my people. And now we are your people too," she said quietly. "All of us who you have helped escape. We are bound together now." Jiwon nodded. "Then we better make sure we all survive what comes next." Outside the ship's windows, hyperspace streamed past in lines of light. They were safe for now, but the war was just beginning, and the hegemony would not forgive what they had done. Still, as Jiwon looked at Nari resting in the medical bay, he felt something he had not expected. Hope. They had proven that the hegemony could be beaten. Not easily and not without cost, but it could be done. "You're coming with me," he had said in the arena. Now he realized that they were all coming together, all the people who refused to bow to tyranny. and together they were stronger than any of them had ever been alone. The news of the Keth-7 raid spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In hidden bases and refugee camps, on slave worlds and in prison ships, people heard the story and began to hope. Jiwan stood on the bridge of their new flagship, watching dozens of ships arrive at their secret base. It was built inside a dead asteroid, hidden from hegemony sensors. What had started as a small rebel group was growing into something larger. "Another convoy just arrived," Hyan reported from the communication station. 3 freighters full of refugees and 2 warships that defected from the hegemony fleet. "How many people is that now?" Jiwan asked. "Almost 5,000, Yunji said, looking up from her engineering displays. "And more coming every day." Nari stood at the tactical station, studying reports from across the galaxy. Her injuries from Keth-7 had healed, but something else had changed about her. She moved. With more confidence now, and when she spoke, people listened. "The hegemony is having problems," she said. "Uprisings on 12 worlds. 3 of their governors have been assassinated. Their fleet is spread thin trying to maintain control." "Good," Minho said, entering the bridge. The older human admiral had become their military commander. "But they are not sitting still. Intelligence reports say they are gathering a huge fleet." "Where?" Jiwan asked. "The capital system. Admiral Yerim is calling in every ship they have." Nari's eyes narrowed. "That means they are planning something big. Or they are scared," suggested Soyeon, who had joined them on the bridge. The former, rebel leader, had brought her 100 ships to their cause, doubling their strength. "Scared creatures are dangerous," Nari said. "They do desperate things." A new voice interrupted them. "May I suggest something?" They turned to see Jisoo, a young human woman who had joined them after escaping from a hegemony research facility. She was their best expert on enemy communications and intelligence. "What do you have?" Jiwan asked. "I have been monitoring hegemony. Transmissions," Jisoo said. "They are planning a conference on their main command station. All the species leaders who support them will be there." "A conference about what?" Minho asked. "About the human problem," Jisoo said grimly. "They want to discuss the final solution." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. "Genocide," Soyeon said quietly. "Not just humans," Nari added. "Anyone who has helped us. Dragonborn, the Blueskins, the Crystal People. They want to end the rebellion by ending the rebels." Jiwan felt cold. "When is this conference?" "In 10 days, Jisoo said. "The command station will have every important hegemony leader in one place. That is also where they will have their biggest defenses," Minho pointed out. "It would be suicide to attack it." "Maybe," Nari said, "but it would also be the perfect target." "What do you mean?" Jiwan asked. "Think about it," Nari said, moving to the star map display. "If we could disrupt this conference, broadcast evidence of their genocide plans to the whole galaxy, it would show everyone what the hegemony really is." "How do we broadcast anything from their most secure station?" Soyeon asked. "The same way we escaped from Kepler Station," Nari said, looking at Jiwon, "with human cleverness and dragon fire." Over the next 3 days, they planned the most dangerous mission any of them had ever attempted. The hegemony command station was the size of a small moon, defended by hundreds of ships and thousands of weapons platforms. "The station has one weakness," Yunji explained during a planning session. "It is too big to move quickly. If we can get close enough, they cannot use their biggest weapons without damaging themselves." "How do we get close?" Daeho asked. "Diversion," Minho said. "We attack their outer defenses with most of our fleet. While they are busy fighting us, a small team goes for the station itself." "Who would be on this small team?" Soyeon asked, though she already knew the answer. "Me, Nari, and whoever else wants to volunteer for a suicide mission," Jiwon said. "I volunteer," Hyeon said immediately. "So do I," Yunji added. And me, said Daeho. Soon, half the people in the room had volunteered. Jiwon was touched, but also worried. This is not a game. Most of us will probably die. Then we die fighting, Nari said. That is better than living as slaves. But not everyone agreed with the plan. That night, Soyeon came to find Jiwon in his quarters. I think you are making a mistake, she said. Why? Because you are thinking like a human, Soyeon said. You see a problem and want to fix it with one big heroic gesture. But war is not won by heroes. It is won by patience and careful planning. We do not have time for patience, Jiwon said. If the hegemony implements their final solution, billions will die. And if your mission fails, the rebellion dies with you, Soyeon countered. You have become a symbol to these people. Without you and Nari, they will give up. Jiwon sat down heavily on his bunk. So what do you suggest? Hit smaller. Targets. Rescue more prisoners. Build our strength slowly. Eventually, we will be strong enough to challenge them directly. Eventually might be too late. Soyeon sighed. I know you want to save everyone, but sometimes the best you can do is save some. After she left, Jiwon sat alone, thinking. Part of him knew Soyeon was right. The smart thing would be to wait, to build their forces, to be patient. But he also thought about all the people still in hegemony prisons, the children being turned into slaves, the species facing extinction. A soft knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Come in. Nari entered, carrying 2 cups of tea. She sat down next to him and handed him one of the cups. You are thinking too much, she said. Soyeon thinks I am being reckless. Soyeon thinks like a general. You think like a person. Nari sipped her tea. Both have their place. What do you think I should do? I think, Nari said slowly, that you should remember why you freed me from those chains. Because it was the right thing to do. Yes. And attacking the command station is also the right thing to do. Not because it is smart or safe, but because it is right. Jiwon looked at her. You could die. So could you. So could all of us. Nari shrugged. But we could also win. And if we win, we show the galaxy that the hegemony can be beaten. And if we lose, then we lose fighting for freedom instead of dying in chains. She smiled. I prefer that. The next morning, Jiwon called a meeting of all the rebel leaders. The room was packed with humans, dragonborn, and aliens from a dozen. Different species. We attacked the command station in 6 days, he announced. Soyeon stood up. I still think this is a mistake. Noted, Jiwon said. But we are going anyway. Anyone who does not want to participate can stay here and protect the base. If you go, Soyeon said, I go too. Somebody has to keep you from getting killed. Murmurs of agreement filled the room. Whatever their doubts, the rebels were united. What about the galaxy-wide broadcast? Asked Jisoo. Even if we reach the station, how do we take over their communications? Leave that to me, Yoonji said. I have been studying hegemony systems for years. If I can get physical access to their main transmitter, I can override it. And I can provide the distraction you need, Nari added. Nothing gets attention like dragonfire in the corridors of a space station. As the meeting continued, Jiwon felt something he had not expected. Peace. This might be a suicide mission, but it was the right choice. Whatever happened, they would face it together. You're coming with me, he had said to Nari in the arena. Now he was saying it to all of them. All the refugees and rebels and freedom fighters who had chosen to stand against tyranny, they were going to the heart of the hegemony. And they were going to make sure the galaxy heard the truth, even if it killed them. The hegemony command station hung in space like a metal moon, surrounded by hundreds of warships. It was the most heavily defended place in the galaxy, and Jiwon was about to attack it with 50 ships and a plan that barely qualified as insane. All ships. This is Admiral Minho, came the voice over their communication system. Remember, we are not trying to win this battle. We are trying to create enough chaos for the infiltration team to reach the station. Ji-won sat in the pilot seat of a small, fast ship that Yoonji had modified for stealth. Beside him, Nari checked her weapons one final time. In the back, Hyeon monitored their sensors while Jisoo prepared her communication equipment. Infiltration. Team, you are clear to proceed, Minho's voice said. Good luck. Ji-won engaged the engines and flew toward the massive station while the rebel fleet attacked the outer defenses. Energy beams and explosions lit up space around them, but their stealth systems kept them hidden from enemy sensors. There, Nari pointed to a small docking port on the station's lower section. That leads to the maintenance levels. Security will be lighter there. Docking now, Ji-won said. The station was so large that the battle raging around its edges seemed distant and quiet. They landed in a nearly empty hangar and quickly made their way into the station's corridors. According to the plans Jisoo stole, the main communication center is 40 levels up, Yoonji said, consulting a portable display. But we need to reach it without triggering the security systems. Leave that to me, Nari said. They moved through the station like ghosts. When they encountered security cameras, Nari disabled them with precisely controlled bursts of fire. When they met guards, she dealt with them quickly and quietly. You have gotten very good at that, Ji-won observed. I have been practicing, Nari said grimly. They reached the communication center without major incident. It was a huge room filled with sophisticated equipment that managed information flow across the entire hegemony. Dozens of technicians worked at control stations, unaware that enemies had infiltrated their most secure facility. How do we get them out without raising an alarm? Hyeon whispered. We do not, Nari said. She stepped into the room and roared. It was not a human sound or even a normal dragon sound. It was the roar of a predator announcing its presence to prey. The technicians screamed and ran for the exits. Subtle, Ji-won said. Effective, Nari replied. Yoonji ran to the main control station and began working. Her fingers flew over the alien. Controls as she accessed the station's communication systems. How long do you need? Ji-won asked. 5 minutes to override their security. Then another 5 to establish a galaxy-wide connection. You have 3 minutes, Jisoo said, monitoring the security channels. Guard forces are moving toward us from all directions. Then we hold them off, Nari said. The first guards arrived 2 minutes later. They poured into the communication center with energy weapons and combat armor. Nari met them at the doorway with dragonfire, but there were too many of them. Ji-won, she called out. I need help! Ji-won grabbed an energy rifle from a fallen guard and took position beside her. He was not a soldier, but he had learned to fight during their months as rebels. How much longer, Yoonji? He shouted over the sound of weapons fire. Almost there. More guards arrived, then combat robots, then soldiers in powered armor. The doorway became a choke point where Nari's fire and Ji-won's precise shooting held off a small army. I'm in! Yoonji shouted. Jisoo, you can begin the broadcast! Jisoo activated her equipment. Suddenly, every communication screen in the galaxy showed the same image, the interior of the Hegemony Command Station, with rebels fighting desperately to stay alive. People of the galaxy, Jisoo said into her microphone, you are seeing live footage from inside the Hegemony Command Station. We are here to show you what your leaders are really planning. She activated a device that began broadcasting the files they had stolen. Plans for the genocide of entire species, orders to turn civilian populations into slaves, evidence of torture, murder, and oppression on a scale that shocked even hardened rebels. This is what the hegemony calls order, Jisoo continued, the systematic destruction of anyone who dares to think freely. But the guards were getting closer. Nari was exhausted from breathing fire continuously, and their ammunition was running low. Unji, can you lock down the station? Ji-won asked. What do you mean? Seal the blast doors, disable their weapons, turn their own security systems against them. Yunji's eyes lit up. I can try. She began typing commands faster than Jiwon had. Ever seen anyone work? Across the station, blast doors slammed shut, trapping guards in corridors. Security robots turned on their operators. Even the artificial gravity began fluctuating in some sections. You are causing chaos, Nari observed with approval. That is the idea, Yunji said. The broadcast continued for 20 minutes. 20 minutes of showing the galaxy exactly what the hegemony had planned for them. By the time Admiral Yerem and her elite guards finally broke through to the communication center, it was too late. Surrender now, Admiral Yerem demanded, pointing a weapon at Jiwon. And I will only execute you. Continue this madness, and I will hunt down every human in the galaxy. You were already planning to do that, Jiwon said calmly. True, Admiral, Yerem admitted. But now the whole galaxy knows our plans. You have doomed your own species by exposing us. No, Nari said, stepping forward. We have saved them. One dragon cannot stop the entire hegemony fleet. You are right, Nari said, but I am not alone anymore. As if summoned by her words, explosions echoed through the station. The lights flickered, and the artificial gravity failed for a moment. What is happening? Admiral Yerem demanded. Jisoo smiled. The galaxy is answering our broadcast. On the communication screens, they could see it happening. Ships arriving from every direction. Not just rebel ships, but vessels from neutral worlds, former hegemony allies, even some hegemony ships whose crews had mutinied after seeing the broadcast. The Zethkari fleet just arrived, Hyon reported, monitoring the external communications. And the Crystal Consortium, and I think that is the entire Blue Star Republic Navy. More and more ships appeared on the screens. Species that had been enemies for centuries were joining together against the hegemony. The broadcast had done more than expose the truth. It had united the galaxy. Impossible, Admiral Yerem whispered. You never understood, Jiwon said. People want to be free. They just needed to know they were not alone. The battle for the command station lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the hegemony fleet was scattered or destroyed. Admiral Yerem was captured, along with most of the species leaders who had supported the genocide plan. But the real victory was what happened next. For the first time in galactic history, representatives from hundreds of different species met to form a new government. Not one based on conquest and fear, but on cooperation and mutual respect. It will not be easy, Minho warned during one of the planning sessions. Different species have different needs, different values. Easy was never the point, Nari said. Freedom is worth the difficulty. 6 months later, Jiwon stood on the bridge of a new kind of ship. It was jointly designed by humans and Dragonborn, with contributions from a dozen other species. The crew was just as diverse, with beings working side by side who had been enemies a year ago. Captain, Hyun called from the pilot station, we are approaching the Keth 7 system. Jiwon nodded. They were returning to the former prison planet, but not as rescuers this time. Now it was being converted into a memorial and a school, a place where young beings from across the galaxy could learn about freedom and the cost of maintaining it. Take us into orbit, Jiwon ordered. Nari joined him at the main viewport. She wore the uniform of the new Galactic Confederation, but she had kept her warrior's bearing. Together, they watched the planet where they had once fought for their lives. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had not freed me from those chains? Nari asked. Jiwon considered the question. I think someone else would have done it eventually. People like you do not stay chained forever. Maybe, but it was you who did it. You who chose to act when action seemed impossible. We all chose to act, Jiwon said. That is why we won. A young human officer approached them. Captain, we are receiving a message from the Memorial Committee. They are ready for the dedication ceremony. Tell them we will be down shortly, Jiwan said. As they prepared to leave the ship, Nari touched his arm. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For coming back for me. For showing me that even in the darkest place, someone cares enough to break the chains. Jiwan smiled. You're coming with me, he had said in the arena all those months ago. Now he realized that the phrase meant something different. It was not just about physical rescue. It was about the choice to stand together, to refuse to abandon each other, to build something better than what came before. They walked toward the shuttle together, ready to honor the memory of those who had died for freedom and to teach the next generation that liberty was worth any price. The galaxy was free, not because heroes had saved it, but because ordinary people had chosen to be heroic when it mattered most. And in that choice, they had found something more valuable than victory. They had found each other.